Hello and welcome to Campfire with Harold. We appreciate if you subscribe, like, and share this content.
So, welcome back to Campfire, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, this is a place where we engage your heart, your mind, and your spirit. And tonight's conversation, which will be broadcast probably on Saturday evening, it's more about what's happening with respect to Canada's election and Mark Carney. Now, as most of you would have known, that Mark Carney was the governor of the Bank of Canada and both the Bank of England. And he was no stranger to power. Now, he had an impeccable resume in global finance and a great reputation for steering economies. But then a prime minister, who was Max Carney boss, said that he was bad for Canada and that he should never be elected. Now, some people would have praised him for his work in Brookfield management, but others would not approve of what he did. Now, let's take a closer look at what's happening. Now, Mark Carney had a lot of global ties with a lot of financial institutions around the world. And he was also a part of the Bank of International Settlements. And have you heard about the World Economic Forum? Yes, he was part of that. And he was in charge of, I think, ESG and net zero. You know what? He served many roles at the World Economic Forum. And there he raised a lot of connections. And he had loyalties that was more aligned to WEF. Now, as you heard, Pierre Poilievre have said that he did not want to have the WEF involved in Canada. And I could fully understand that because these people are unelected bureaucrats who wants to run the world. Now, have you heard about Jordan Peterson? Well, he used to be a professor at the University of Toronto, and he is now a spokesperson, and he's a podcaster, and he travels the world. And recently, he wrote about Marcanian values, the book that was written by Marcani. But Jordan Peterson said, when institutions begin to serve themselves instead of the people, then trust erodes and decay sets in. And that's a very powerful statement. So, one of the first things that goes wrong is when the trust is no longer there of a candidate. And this has been happening lately to Mark Carney. And obviously, we tend to doubt his words. And a recent reporter questioned him on exactly his words that he made some time ago. Now, you know about the ESG and the climate finance agenda that he had at the World Economic Forum. Well, Mark Carney was one of the global architects of that era. Now, while at probably one time it was well intentioned, ESG has become a really bad word around the world. Now, he being a special envoy for climate change, he, as a matter of fact, influenced Trudeau because he was the Trudeau's economic advisor. And how much money did they spend in Canada for EVs? Billions and billions of dollars. I think it might be in the range of about $30 billion that was invested. Now, is it long term? We don't know, but Trudeau is no longer there. The plants are beginning to shut down now. And what's happening in the States, that's another story. Now, Canada's weather, it's unpredictable. And EVs do not work well in the Canadian winters. And I couldn't understand for the life of me how it is possible that we can invest so much money on EVs that doesn't work in real climate conditions. Now, the world have been trying for a very long time, especially Europe, to master the EV revolution, but it never worked. Never worked. EVs tend to fail after a while, and it performs really badly in cold conditions. And this is why it's important to know that where you spend your money today, you get a return on that investment. Now, Mark Carney, he was never elected to office here, and he was placed into power by 150,000 people. And out of 400,000 people, the rest were disqualified. Why? Well, these are questions that people must ask Mark Carney. Why was all these people disqualified? Why was two of his candidates from the Liberal Party they were also disqualified? One is Dr. Ruby Dalla and the other one is Chandra Arya. Now, Mark Carney is running Chandra Arya's riding. Think about that carefully. So Mark Carney ensured that he got that seat to run in. Isn't that something? It's strange. Now, what I could tell you is this, that the election is coming up in the next couple of days. I think it's as a matter of fact, it's on Monday, April 28th, 2025. And most of you will be thinking whether or not I am casting the right vote. Absolutely. You got to think that because Canada is in a crossroads currently. Let me explain to you a little bit about Canada. As you know, Trudeau ran this country for 10 years. And we had the lowest growth, 0.5% of all the OECD countries in the world. And among the other countries, we are right at the very bottom. So we are doing really, really badly. I think we were at 0.5% growth, while most of the countries in Europe and Eastern Asia, they grew much faster, but we were so bad. Anyway, and the policy all came from Mark Carney. Now, when Mark Carney was running the Bank of England, he basically crushed the English economy and nearly into bankruptcy. And the same thing here in Canada. Now, as you know, Canada do not have money in, let's say, a savings account. So if we have to do any of these projects, where are they going to get the money from? Either through loans or you have to print those money. Well, Trudeau was printing $5 to $10 billion a week to ensure that the programs survive in Canada. Now, ladies and gentlemen, is this what you wanted? Well, look at housing today. The price of homes are so expensive. In Toronto, it's over $1 million. And most of the country, it's extremely expensive. We have the second largest amount of land in the world. We have the most expensive housing in the world. How is that possible? Let's take PEI, for example. PEI is a very small island, but you can get a brand new semi-detached for about $350,000. And in Toronto, it's probably $1 million, 1.3, somewhere around there for the same very home. And I would like Mark Carney to explain that for us. Anyhow, so we have the crime rate that really, really skyrocketed. So just about everywhere now, the crime rate is beyond. Now, you look at homelessness, all the major streets, you would see what's happening on those streets. People are actually living on the streets and their camps set out everywhere. And there is so much opioid addiction. There's so many mental cases. And who is responsible? Yep, Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney. This is what you got for 10 years. And you have the drug war. What goes on in the day is a different situation what goes on in the night. So the drug cartels operate this country at nights. Now, you remembered a report that came out a while back where CSIS and RCMP said that there were 4,000 plus criminal networks or elements into this country right now. Well, it's much more than 4,000. And Donald Trump had said that in the United States that we are having a serious problem here with fentanyl. Well, not only fentanyl, just about every type of a drug. Canada has become the drug haven in the world. Easy transshipment point from Canada into United States. Thanks to Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney. Mark, you did a great job, and now you want to become Prime Minister. And what about immigration? Immigration is a hot topic where you have hundreds of thousands of immigrants come into this country, and most of them came here with great intentions, and they couldn't find housing, they couldn't find jobs, they were unable to pay the school fees because things were so very expensive in this country. So why did you bring in all these immigrants in this country? On the other hand, you have hundreds of thousands of immigrants that came, or probably students that came here with fake mills, degrees, and diplomas. Now, Canada has done such a poor job that allowed this to happen. Canada used to be one of the most respected countries in the world, whereby our passport was most valued, whereby coming to Canada is like winning the lottery ticket. Now, everything has gotten so much worse. Now, you are thinking, well, Trump is the problem here. No, Trump is not the problem. Mark Carney and Justin Trudeau is the problem. You see, Trump protected his country, and he's doing everything to protect his country, to create wealth in his country. And he's doing what he is doing best. Look at the other countries in the world. They are not having the same issues here like in Canada. Why? Mark Carney and China. Now, China and Mark Carney has combined forces now to basically fight the Donald Trump factor. Now, as you know, that a lot of monies are coming from the Chinese government into the liberal coffers. A lot of influence by the Chinese in our government. Our ports are operated by whom? The Chinese again. So the situation is very critical in Canada. A recent report came out that says that in the next 10 years, Canada would be in such a bad position that we'll have to forage for food. That means we wouldn't be able to afford the food, because the plans that Mark Carney have is that you will drive within a 15-minute city. You cannot work outside of that 15-minute zone. There'll be no pipelines that will be built across this country. And there will be zero emission, according to him. So then we are going to be the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. And that is why the report came out saying that people will have to fight to just feed their families. This is a situation in Canada, ladies and gentlemen. And do not take my words for granted, but do your own research and see if what I am saying is true. Talk to reporters. You have ChatGPT. Go to ChatGPT and Google that information. You could use ChatGPT and do that search. and tells you everything that you need to know. So anyhow, you all will be heading to the election shortly, but I just want to make sure, I do not want to influence you guys, but I just want to let you guys know that Mark Carney is not the person who you think he is. What about the Epstein factor? You remember that he was very much in photographs that was taken between the Epsteins and him at his home in London. What happened to that? His names appeared in the black book. What happened to that? What about the offshore accounts? What about the Bahamas and Bermuda and the Grand Cayman? What about those tax shelters? What about the billions of dollars that could have been put into the Canadian coffers and that was actually taken away from the Canadian pensioners? Is that the Mark Carney that you want to become Prime Minister? I think a lot of people has been fooled by the image of Mark Carney, who has a PhD. But Justin Trudeau had a lot of brilliant people around him, and it became worse. And guess what? Mark Carney was his advisor for 5 years, and Canada went down the precipice. Now, if Canada has no money, where do you expect the country going to be in the next 5 years? Exactly what I said before. If you don't have money, you have to borrow. And if you cannot get that loan, what do you have to do? Print the money. And when you print the money, what do you get? Inflation. And when you get inflation, what happened? Higher food prices, home price, everything through the roof. Your dollar would devalue. And if you're looking at a new government, think about it carefully. Mark Carney is not the guy that you would want there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you listening, and stay tuned for future episodes on Campfire with Harold. And take care and make sure you guys get out and vote. Okay, well,